are we actively combating greed? Or are we just enjoying the culture we live in of success and prosperity? Jesus says, take care. Be on guard against this infection of greed and covetousness. And then he offers us a proverb. It's a fantastic line here that Jesus teaches us. He says, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. He's saying that to people that don't have AC, that never flew to Tahiti. He's saying that to people that don't have a closet full of nice shoes. He's saying that to people who probably had a fairly simple life. But your life does not consist of the abundance of things. How pertinent is that statement for us today? As we live in a culture that tells us that possessions equal success, that wealth equals happiness, that what you have is equal to who you are. But it's a lie, friends. Life is not found in the abundance of possessions. What you have does not determine who you are. Honestly, who you are is much greater than what you have. Happiness does not equal wealth. How many people have so much and yet they are the most miserable, ornery, frustrated, disappointed people on the face of the planet? They have the whole world and yet they are not content or happy with any of it. This is a lie that we have bought into. And so now Jesus, he's taught us this proverb. Life doesn't consist in the abundance of things. And now he's going to tell us a parable. He told them a parable saying, verse 16, the land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, what shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. He said, verse 18, I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? Verse 21, so is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. Verse 16, we notice something very quickly. Most of us don't pay attention to it on the first read. But verse 16 will show us, who was this man before the land produced plentifully? A rich man. He already had a lot. He already had tons. He was rich. He already was content. He wasn't worrying about his next meal, where he was going to sleep. He wasn't worried about even a really famine that would come through or it wouldn't rain for a few months. He was rich. He was taken care of. He was in good shape. And then the land produced plentifully. Now, he would probably say, well, it's because of my wise investments, because I've worked hard, because I've done this. I pulled myself up by those bootstraps, and I am so proud of who I've become. Look at how successful I am now. See, it says the land produced plentifully, and that man would probably argue with you that I caused it to produce. After all, I'm the one that tilled the ground. I'm the one that sowed the seed. I'm the one that pruned the branches. I'm the one that gathered the harvest. I have made this plentiful bounty. But what if you ask him, did you send the rain? Did you wake up the sun? What were you doing underneath the ground as it was expanding roots? Were you giving it nutrients, or were you just hoping that that seed that you planted would take root? See, this man would argue, I have caused my riches. Look at what I have made of myself. Failing to understand or consider at all that God was working in any way. He was proud of what he had made. And then he has a question. There's not a problem with this question. Verse 17 throws us a question. What shall I do? Listen, this is a question that needs answering. When you experience a windfall, when blessing and favor overcome you, when you have been given all of this, you have to ask the question, what shall I do? This is not a problem. It's a question. What shall I do? The problem comes when you only look inwardly, when you only focus on what you can do for yourself. Read verses 17 and 18 with me. It says this, "What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops." And he said to himself, "I will do this. I will tear down my barns, and I will build larger ones, and I will store all my grain and my goods." In those verses, I want you to hear the cadence. There's about 40 words in those two verses, and the cadence 9 times uses these words. I, my. Then again he does, I, my. And then he ends, the final 3 are I, my grain, and my goods. His focus is solely on his things. Not considering anyone else, not considering anything else, not considering how it could be used for good, but solely how it can be used for himself. The question he has to answer is, what shall I do? Well, his answer is choose hedonism. Eat, drink, be merry, relax, live it up. You deserve this. You earned this. Have your best life. He's so self-absorbed that he considers none of what he has to be beneficial to God or to others. He's missing the greatest 2 commandments, right? Love your Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. No, he is loving himself and as God. Completely self-absorbed. My question to you this morning is, are you similarly self-consumed? Is everything you earn, everything that you have, everything that you've attained, is it yours? Do you hoard what you have, or do you share it? Are you willing to be burdened and bothered by others? Or have they stopped even asking because they know that you don't help anyone? That generosity, sacrifice, and helpfulness haven't even come to your mind. You're just thinking about your own needs and wants and desires. Jesus is telling a convicting story to reveal what is deep within us. It's interesting as you consider all of these concepts. When he had this massive harvest, too big for his barns, right? He's going, well, I need to build bigger barns for myself. I need to have a place to store all this. I need to keep all this grain for me. Isn't it interesting how the concept of needs and wants get very blurry very fast in our lives? I need a new table. Lars is 10 years old. I need a new car. Mine's getting close to 100 or 150 or 100,000 miles. I need some new jeans. I've had those for 6 years, and I need, right? It gets blurry very fast. That is until a first grader walked into our house and said, guess what I was taught at school, Mom and Dad? Cooper comes home and he says, you only need 4 things: food, shelter, water, air. He reminds us of those 4 things. Hey, Coop, I need you to brush your teeth and make up your bed. Actually, Dad, person only needs food, shelter, water, air. Trust me, they're seared in my brain very clearly. So then we turned it back on him. We're at Target. Lego aisle comes up. I need this one, Dad. It'll work with my set that I already have, and I need it to complete it. Actually, Cooper, you only need food, shelter, air, and water. It's not real fun, right? But our expectation in life just grows and grows. And we need more and more and more. They become requirements on our life, not extras. We live in this world of needing. He thought he needed bigger barns until verse 20, God intrudes in his life. Up until this point, everything was great for the rich man. Everything was great. He was successful. He was content. He was secure. He was happy. He had life exactly how he wanted. And then God intrudes. Fool, this night your soul is required of you. And the things that you've prepared, whose will they be? There's no time to make arrangements. There's no time to fix things. There's no time to do anything different. It's not even, well, I'm going to go open that bottle that's reserved that we were going to save for this special moment. No, you missed out on it. You were so consumed with having that you never lived. And that's the question, isn't it? To have or to live? Some of us are so consumed with having. I need to have security. I need to have stability. I need to have this or that. I need to have enough so that I'm not worried about anything, that we fail to live. Everything that we have is secure in a safety deposit box or locked in a safe or put up on a top shelf so that it's not reached. And we have all of this valuable stuff that never gets used. It's never lived. It's a dangerous place to live. It's interesting when Jesus is using this question, he doesn't say, was it worth it? He knows that the main concern of this rich man is, what's going to happen to all my stuff? It's like Scrooge with all of the coins and the gold and the money, right? Like, oh no, I'm just worried about that. What's going to happen with all that you have? See, there's a day where God intrudes in our life, But are we building our lives around what matters or around simply what makes us happy in the moment? Are we accumulating more and more, but failing to appreciate, and beyond that, failing to use our blessings in the favor of God for His good and the world's good? Are we so self-consumed in what we have to the detriment of those around us? Jesus is stepping in that we need to have proper priorities, that we need to properly value things in a proper way. I want to start landing the plane now for us this morning. What is Jesus not teaching? These will come up on the screen. Jesus is not teaching that success is bad. Just press it to the right one more time. There you go, Mark. Jesus is not teaching that success is bad. It's okay, and it's good to be successful. Look at the Old Testament. How many people were successful and rich? It is not a punishment to be successful. You should work with all of your might and all of your facilities and all of your abilities for the good of your neighbor and for the glory of God. You should not waste who you are, and being successful is not bad. The second thing is, riches are evil. That is not something Jesus is teaching. Let me say this, here's the difference. Riches are dangerous. They're not evil. Riches are dangerous, but they're not evil. Third thing Jesus is not teaching is go and sell everything that you have and give it to the poor and then come and follow me. He did that to one person in the Bible, didn't he? Because he knew what stood in the way of the rich young ruler was his wealth. He knew the greatest blessing for that man in his life would be to sell everything, because he was a slave to his stuff and was not willing to be a slave to Jesus. So he instructed that one man to go and sell all he had, but Jesus is not prescribing that to all Christianity. He's saying beware, be on guard. Finally, he is not advocating or setting up some kind of Christian communism either. Okay? Well, we don't need to misconstrue these passages to then say something that Jesus is not saying. He's not saying that everything should be equal and everything. No, but he is saying we should care about each other and we should meet the needs of others, not so much out of requirement, but out of desire, out of love. So what is Jesus teaching then in this passage? Jesus is first teaching us to focus and to prioritize on what matters. He is teaching us to order our life around what matters, to focus on the eternal rather than the temporal. Yet we give ourselves to what rots and rusts over what matters. Second thing Jesus is teaching is that we are to be watchful with what we have. We are not to be a slave to our stuff. Have you ever bought a new pair of shoes? You're so nervous to scuff them or scratch them or crease them or bend them or play with them in the mud. You already bought it. It's yours. And yet, here you are going, oh, I don't want to hurt you in any way, shoe. You're the master of the shoe, not the shoe the master of you. Beware of being a slave to your stuff. The third thing that we see from this is that we need to fight greed. Robert Stein has a great definition of greed. He says this: greed is the insatiable desire and lust for more and more. Greed is the insatiable desire and lust for more and more. He says it is all-consuming. It is never ending. Greed will not allow you to focus on anything or anyone else, even God. Why does Jesus say be on guard and take care? Because greed is a sickness that infects us and destroys us. It becomes an all-consuming passion that we call needs. Think about 10 years ago. Now, I understand the concept of inflation and economy, but just listen with me. 10 years ago, you had a number in your head that if you could just make that number, your life would be set. 5 years ago, you exceeded that number and your life was not set. We understand this. We believe that if I can just get to this salary, if I can just get to this home, if I can just get to this place, that I will be good. But then the desire keeps going. It does not evaporate. It just gets worse. So what's the solution to greed? It's not avoiding money and success. It's having a proper attitude with it. The solution to greed is not avoiding riches, but properly using them. So I got 3 little quick lessons that connect with other Jesus teachings as we finish. The first, I want to bring your attention to these things called sins of omission. Most of the time when you think of where's your sin, you have sins of commission. I did this, I said this, I acted in that way, I stole that, I lied about that, I looked at that, all these sort of things. We understand sin of commission. Those are the ones that we confess. A sin of omission is failing to do what is right when you know what is right. We don't really worry about those. They gnaw at us, but we ignore them pretty quickly. James 4:17 says that, let me read it exactly. It says, anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it sins. Guys, not only do we need to avoid wrong living and should we choose to live righteously, we are to also do what is right even when we don't want to. Sins of omission matter. Combat them. Second quick thing is you cannot serve God and money. Jesus is very clear, Luke 16:13. You cannot have 2 masters. You're going to hate one and love the other, or vice versa. You cannot serve God and money. And yet here we are trying. The third one is this. The third lesson I want us to hear is riches are dangerous. Okay? They are dangerous. We have to be careful. We would not say, oh, here's a venomous snake, just pick it up, it'll be okay. Right? We would not say, oh, here's a balance beam across this massive high rise. Oh, I'm just going to walk it flippantly. No, we take care and we're on guard when we are handling difficult tasks, when we're in dangerous situations. But yet we do not treat possessions and money and riches and success in the same way. These are lessons to consider. Riches will draw us away from God. Riches will promise things that it will never provide. Riches are dangerous. Here's a little axiom to help you remember this. The less needs we have, the less we think we need God. The less needs that we have, the less we think we need God. We're not praying for rain. We just turn the sprinkler system on. We're not hoping the milk doesn't spoil. We just look at the date and we set the refrigerator thermostat. The less needs we have, the less we think we need God. When I was in seminary, my preaching professor always said, you need a highway to Jesus in every sermon you do. So let me get you on that highway as we close. One, Jesus is the great high priest who knows everything that we have walked through, who has been tempted in every way and suffered in every way. Jesus understands the difficulty of this. Remember the temptation in the wilderness? Hey, you can have the whole world. No. Remember how Jesus, he had everything before he stepped down. He was in heaven dwelling with God, and he stepped down and took on flesh to be with us, to experience the suffering of the cross. He knows what it is like to have it all, and he knows that it does not satisfy. The second thing that I love about this passage is when you get home today and you're wrestling through, man, what should I do in response to what was taught? You're going to get nervous and you're going to say, I can't do that. Guess what? Read the next few verses. So the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God is like the rich fool. Verse 22, it's not on the screen, listen. And he said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, nor about your body and what you will put on. For life is far more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens, and God feeds them. Consider the lilies of the field, and God beautifully clothes them. Seek his kingdom, and all these things will be added unto you. Friends, you're going to be anxious, and you're going to make excuses. I cannot do this. I don't think you understand. The antidote to greed is generosity. The antidote to greed. How can you combat greed? Be generous. I'll end with this. I've been wrestling through this. Sorry, I've said I'm going to end, and I really am this time. This has been on my mind, my heart, all week. I've been talking with our family and all of this concept, because I can't get up here and preach to you guys and not try to practice it. In January, we realized we are not doing good with our excess at all. We are blessed by you as a congregation, but to have jobs and all this sort of stuff, we were very well taken care of. And we realized we were being very flippant with it. And so as an act of stewardship and really a righteous response, we started a budget. And some of you go, we've had a budget. Yeah, no, that's great. And we actually are following it this year and focusing on it. And it's been so helpful to realize just the ways that God has taken care of us, because we are to be good stewards of what God has given us. The second thing is, this week in particular, how it's made sense is this. Friday, Carlin got in one of those cleaning moods. She had a few minutes and started cleaning out Cooper's closet, and 2.5 trash bag fulls later, we had a lot of stuff. And I said, well, let's not stop. Let's keep going. And so she moved to her closet. Then she moved to my closet. We had 8 40 or whatever size, this size garbage bags. 8 filled up of excess, of stuff that we haven't worn in years, of stuff that could be more useful than sitting in my closet taking up space. It could be clothing the back of someone else in my community. Will you consider where your excess is? Will you consider how God has abundantly blessed you? And that maybe he didn't just bless you so you could hoard blessings, but maybe he's blessing you so that you can be a blessing to others. Take care and be on guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Let's pray. Dear God, I pray